Hello, Facebook fans and YouTube fans of DX Engineering. It's Tuesday afternoon here in the Eastern time zone of the USA. It's 18:15 Zulu on February 7th, 2023. It's time for Tuesdays with DX Engineering. And a lot of these Tuesdays, we feature folks that work at DX Engineering so that you can learn more about them. Today we have George, K3GP. Hello, George.
Good afternoon.
So, George, how long have you been with DX Engineering, and tell everybody what you do?
Well, I've been with DX Engineering almost 15 years now, and I do telephone support, a lot of technical support, questions along various lines, and also take orders and try to solve problems. And the fun part is a lot of times I get to help some new hams that are coming along and have a lot of questions and try to get them pulled up by their bootstraps.
You know, George, I got to believe it's it's really interesting when a new ham who maybe has just got his license or her license, and they say, George, which radio should I buy?
That's a loaded question. It's often like the question, do you prefer Chevys or prefer Fords? It's a lot on your personal tastes. And then we can work from there with specific needs and what they're after.
And George, you have to be pretty skilled at all the various lines, Kenwood, Yaesu, ICOM, Alinco, but after 15 years, I imagine you're pretty good at that.
Oh, yeah. And I've had an opportunity to use most of the lines. Right now, I seem to be honed in on Yaesu radios. Recently had ICOM radios as well. But the fun part of it is part of this job is getting to play with the various makes and models and getting accustomed to them.
Right. And of course, you're pretty good at researching things. How about antennas, George? Somebody just starting out on HF. What kind of recommendations do you give them?
Well, of course, a lot of that depends upon their pocketbook. Certainly, wire antennas have been classic for a lot of years. Vertical antennas work well for a lot of people, especially those that are living in where they don't have a lot of real estate to work with. And then we can work with them. Sometimes some of the customers have the opportunity to have enough real estate to start to talk about towers and Yagis.
Yeah, so you can kind of take them a step at a time, right?
That's right. And there are customers I've been working with nearly the whole 15 years that I've taken through various steps.
So they call in and they say, I want to talk to K3GP because he's my guy.
Well, sometimes they do.
No, that's very cool. Now, George, I know you're quite fond of digital contesting with emphasis on RTTY. Why don't you talk about that?
Okay, RTTY has been part of my life stream, if you will, in the hobby. I started RTTY in the mid to late 70s with teleprinters and terminal units. It was a little bit more difficult. And as time went on, there came out various things like the VIC-20 and small computers and then personal computers. And pretty soon the old teleprinters, which were fun to maintain. I had a lot of fun with teleprinters and also had a few real problems getting them going. And now that computers have come in, of course, you have RTTY with various programs and, of course, FT8, FT4, and all the relatively new digital modes that are a lot of fun to play with.
So somebody calls and they're having trouble getting FT8, FT4 to work. What's your go-to resource for that?
Well, there's the first thing is the $64 question or $64,000 question adjusted for inflation is your clock set right? FT4 and FT8 like to have accurate clocks, and a lot of times we'll find people that their clock may be off by 4, 5, 6 seconds, and it's going to be very difficult to make contacts. Then we work from there. Once we've established that's okay, then we start to look at levels and make sure people that have their radios set for digital communications There's times when if you don't have the radio set properly, the signal put out will not be intelligible by anybody else.
And George, what do you think radios today that have the sound cards in them? There's several models have sound cards already in them, like the IC 7300 and the 7610. Does that make it easier?
Well, it certainly does. It certainly makes it more cost effective. You no longer need something like the Signal Link or outboard sound cards and the like. So it does make life a lot easier. It does add a level of complexity of sometimes getting the configuration right to use that sound card, and also use the internal CAT control or CIV control for ICOM to control the frequency. Getting those two things coordinated together can be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've done it enough times with customers to be able to help them along the way, and that makes it easy from your side, and hopefully less frustrating from the customer's end as well. George, we have a couple of comments here in the chat room. Let's see, we've got Kilo Bravo Zero Sierra Quebec Whiskey. Larry is on, and nice to have you on, Larry. And Steve, I think this is November Alpha 5 Charlie. And he says, can you please send an antenna and an amplifier to 3Y0J? Well, I understand the humor in it, but it's a serious thing. And I'm really close to it. Several of my friends are out there. They're in the worst place on earth, absolutely the worst place on earth. And very good friend of mine, Otis, NP4G, is out there, and he's working his tail off. And these guys are doing the best they can. They have lots of antennas and lots of amplifiers. In fact, last night, if you worked them on 30 meters, they were on 30 CW. That was a DX Engineering vertical.
Good, because I worked them.
Yeah, see? DX Engineering to DX Engineering. But they're not going to have amplifiers. It's not in the cards now. They weren't able to take the big generators up there. They had to reevaluate the entire plan. And right now the plan is no amplifiers. So they don't have enough power. They've got 2 radios. They're doing absolutely the best they can in a place that none of us would want to go. We're all sitting at our homes, George, warm home, and trying to work them. And they did an outstanding job last night on 30. They were on 15 this morning on 15 CW, and 15 phone here not too long ago. So they're doing the absolute best they can. It's a real shame what's going on the cluster spots and all the cat calling and all the police and all that sort of stuff. But the bottom line is, I think we need to really cut those guys a break, because they are, if they could run amplifiers and Yagis, they'd do it. They have them. DX Engineering made sure they had some really, really good antennas, but they might not be able to get them on the island. It's been really, really hard on these guys. We've got India Tango 9, India Delta Golf is on. And Dawn, Whiskey Juliet 3 United. And from England, it's 2 Echo 0, Radio Echo Echo. And George, here's one of our good friends. It's John Stanford from Island Amplifier, who does a lot of the repair work for amplifiers. So how does that go, George, with repairing amplifiers?
Well, it's a lot of times it seems like getting parts can be a real problem. I think John has quite a stockpile of parts, but if you need something that, especially for an amplifier, it's made outside of the country and it needs a specialized part, you've got to allow a little bit of slack for the amount of time it takes to get that part from the other part of the world to the repair station.
George, What about amplifiers and even trap antennas and tuners with FT8?
Got to be awfully careful with FT8 because that, much like RTTY, puts a lot of strain on the equipment. And people think that 1,000 watts PEP means 1,000 watts FT8, and that is not the case. FT8, you better be looking at maybe 25 or 30% of the PEP rating. You're going to heat, otherwise you're going to heat up the equipment to the point where there may be damage. You got to be awfully careful.
Yeah, that has happened to so many guys that decided that, I mean, FT8 is a weak signal. It doesn't take a lot of power to really work well, but guys try to run the power, and then it's key down for 15 seconds like that, and that puts a real stress on the components, and then it ends up going to John to get repaired. Let's see here, who else do we have on? We've got from Cuba. We've got Charlie Oscar 2 Oscar Quebec. And in South Carolina, it's November Juliet 4 Zulu. And Joe, Kilo 8 Mike Papa, said, good topic, gents. I get asked that question a lot. From Mexico, it's X-Ray Echo 2 Zulu Zulu. And Whiskey Juliet 3 United says he's been experimenting with RTTY using FL Digi. Have you ever used FL Digi, George?
Yeah, I have. It's not my favorite. It is a very good program, but it has a lot of complexity to it. And of all the programs that I've played with outside of the ones I normally use for contesting, FL Digi has probably done the best job of deciphering CW. The only better equipment for deciphering CW is the good old ears.
Let's see here. We got Bob the Traveler, who's WD8NVN. He says FT8 is my new favorite mode. Bouvet DXpedition should FT8 Foxhound ASAP. Well, guess what, Bob? They're going to do the best they can, and that's going to have to work. Our friend Michael, W3 Mike Lima Juliet, from he's up in Zelienople, George. Let's see. Andy says he can hear them on 15 meters. I can't hear them at all. I haven't heard them all day, and the sun is going to go down there shortly. And once the sun goes down, it's going to be even tougher. Our friend Dave Vest from the DX Engineering Sales and Support Team, KDV. Hello, Tim and George. Like you both, I feel for those guys at 3Y0J and wish them the best, and safety is above all else. Boy, is that the truth. The first Zodiac that went on the island, one of the guys got thrown out of the boat and had to swim 30 feet. In that ice cold water, George.
They're risking life and limb to give us a rare DX country. God bless them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the real deal. Let's see here. We've got Parky, KB8UUZ is on. He says the 3Y0J team is trying to get everything up and running. Considering the conditions and the problems in that part of the world, they're doing their best. Hang in there. Keep trying. They really want to hear from the ham world. And it's true. It's frustrating for those guys. I mean, they've worked for years to do this. Dan says, WA4 Mike Oscar Mike. Hello, Tim and George. Unfortunately, the conditions that way are at 3Y0J. And we've got W3 Tango Uniform Bravo. Too many pirates. And Steve says, I totally agree, Tim. I was just interjecting a little humor. Yes, they're definitely doing the best they can. And good luck to everyone out there. And George, as we pointed out, we just want to see these guys get back safe to Cape Town. And, that's the big thing.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. Joe says, I worked Chuck 3Y0 Charlie down there 20 years ago. Weather conditions were brutal. Dino, our friend Dino, who writes for onallbands.com.
Yeah.
Onallbands.com. If you haven't been there, you got to go there. Lots of great blogs there. Fingers crossed to work Bouvet guys on CW and data for all-time new ones. That's Kilo Lima 0 Sierra. And question for George, what does he use for RTTY?
Well, for straight conversational TTY, I use MMTTY. For contesting, I'm using N1 MM Plus with the MMTTY engine, as well as two-tone and RITTY. So I have 3 decoders when I'm contesting RTTY.
And so you're taking the output of the 3 decoders to get the best copying, right?
Right. You look at all 3. Let's say a call sign comes through and it doesn't look right, or it comes through with one decoder and there's an error between the one call sign and the other. You can compare the other decoders. Usually when you get a consensus among the 3 decoders of maybe 5 of the 6 call signs being one thing and the 6th one being an odd one, you can bet that you've got the right one with the 5.
There you go. Our good friend Scotty Meyer, another member of the DX Engineering sales and support team. Hello, Scotty. Hello, my friends. Heard on 30 meters, but was waiting since it's not an all-time new one for Scotty's worked Bouvet before. And really, that's what they want you to do is if you have Bouvet, let the guys that need it for an all-time new one, you know, not just a band slot country, band mode slot country, but all-time new one, let those guys go first. And then, you know, once the pileups get worked down, should be in better shape. Well, George, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Thanks so much for all you do to help our customers at DX Engineering. I know the sales team loves to work with you, and you've helped
a good team to work with.
Yeah, you've helped a lot of them as well, and hopefully now our customers know a little bit more about K3GP, the man who spent 15 years here at DX Engineering, and we're so proud of him. Hope all of you enjoyed the show today. We'll be back on with the Manufacturer Showcase. We have a special guest on the Manufacturer Showcase this week, so that's on Thursday. So you can find out more information on the social media shows by going to onallbands.com and take a look at the events calendar. Until Thursday, 73 from DX Engineering.
Take care. See you on the RTTY Whippix contest this weekend.